Hi students, in this video I'm going to go over the introduction to absolute value functions. Absolute value is the number of the distance of any number between that number and 0. So basically it's written with these lines right here. Whenever you see these lines, that's referring to the absolute value. So these next two examples are asking what's the absolute value of 3. 3 is right here, so the distance away from 0, 1, 2, 3, the answer is 3. There's 3 spaces away from 0. In the absolute value of negative 3 is right here. Again, it's 1, 2, 3, 3 spaces away from 0. So both of these have the answer of 3 because you're just answering the distance. So the absolute value is always going to be a positive number. We're going to look into evaluating functions of absolute value, and we're going to have to treat it like a parentheses to follow PEMDAS whenever we're simplifying or evaluating absolute value expressions. So here's an example. The absolute value notation has the 2 lines here, which means that we got to find out what first 9 minus 12 is, and then do the absolute value of that. So the 9 minus 12 results in a negative 3 as an answer. And now we're doing the absolute value of negative 3. So that's positive 3. Here we have negative 3 in the front, and that is a coefficient. We got treated as a coefficient, which results in multiplying that negative 3 times whatever the answer for that absolute value of 9 plus 2 is. So first, we need to find what the absolute value of 9 plus 2 is, and that results in negative 3 times the absolute value of 11. So negative 3. And then the absolute value of 11 is 11. So then that's just multiplying negative 3 times 11. So the answer is negative 33. The next example has absolute value of 4 plus 1. So first that needs to be solved for or simplified. And then that results in the absolute value of 5. And whatever that is, we're going to subtract 8. So this is the same thing as saying 5 minus 8, because the absolute value of 5 is 5. And you're subtracting 8 from that. So you get negative 3. Then you have the last one that has a combination of both. You have a coefficient of 2. So 2 times whatever this absolute value of 8 minus 14 is, plus 3. So let's focus on the absolute value first. The absolute value of 8 minus 14, we're looking at resulting in the absolute value of negative 6. And then after that, we're going to add 3. So the absolute value of negative 6 is 6. So I'm just going to write it here. And then this, still following PEMDAS, we're going to do 2 times 6, which is 12. And we're going to add 3. And then that will result in 15. So that is the algebraic way of solving this. Your calculator does have the program for you to type this in the calculator. I'm just going to show you. So the absolute value is located here in the special characters box next to number 9. This, where you have the 2 lines and a square, that's the absolute value. And then you just simply type what you're doing the absolute value of. So the first one, absolute value of 9 minus 12, that gives you 3. Then you have negative 3, absolute value, 9 plus 2. And then the next one is absolute value of 4 plus 1. And outside of the absolute value, so we're going to move to the right to get out of the absolute value, minus 8. That's negative 3. And the next one is 2 as a coefficient, absolute value of 8 minus 14. Get out of the absolute value, and then we're going to add 3. So that's 15. So notice that all these answers that we got in the calculator are the same answers we got manually. All right, so that's an introduction of how absolute value works in an evaluation of expression. Here is the graphical aspect of absolute value. We're looking at absolute value functions. Just to take you back in time to when you practice functions in Algebra 1, you practice functions that were linear, and you also practice functions that were quadratic, and you also practice functions that were exponential. So those are the three types of functions that you studied in Algebra 1. We're going to keep exploring more functions here in Algebra 2. So we're starting with the absolute value parent function. This parent function is where all the other absolute value functions come from. So just like in all these others, the linear parent function was this one. And from there, we made the line either steeper, less steep, shifted up, shifted down, left or right. Same thing with the quadratic. We had quadratics that were thinner than this, wider than this, flipped up, that down, shifted left, right, wherever it was moved. So this is the parent function. This is where they come from. So what we're going to explore right now is the absolute value parent function. And it follows this function right here. F of x equals absolute value of x. And that f of x sometimes is written as y. So you can also see it like this. Y equals absolute value of x. And again, y and x are just what's the relationship between x and y. So here's the table of values. These are points that we end up plotting. So when x is -2, we're looking at answering what is the absolute value of -2. And the absolute value of -2 is 2. So the y value will be 2. So this point, this -2 combination will be right here. And the -1, if we put a -1 in there, absolute value of -1, the answer will be 1. So again, this is a point, so -1, 1. And then absolute value of 0, the distance away from 0, so that's 0. Distance away from 0, if the absolute value of 1 is asked, so 1. And then absolute value of 2 is 2. So when you plot these points, it creates this graph right here. It's like a V-shaped graph. And again, besides being able to graph it manually, you can also graph it on your calculator. So right here, when we go into graphing, we will type once again the absolute value, which is the characters, special characters next to number 9, absolute value, type x inside, and then there it is. There's the absolute value parent function. And if you ever need to analyze the points of this in a table format, kind of like what we did right here on this paper, you could just do Control T, and then there's the table of that function. You can go up and find more points or down, but basically these are the points right here that you see in the function we created manually. All right, so that is the basics of introducing you to what we're studying here, absolute value functions.